Rex came on and he was talking about his Armenian heritage and, obviously the trials and tribulations that his grandmother had to overcome to come over here. And obviously, Lala, you're of Armenian descent as well. So, like, how impactful and how important was this podcast for you? I know it really was close to your heart.
It really was, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, just seeing the IAN, like every Armenian's last name either ends in YAN or IAN, and watching on TSN and seeing Rex Kalamian getting interviewed, I was like, what do you mean there is an Armenian in the NBA? It was so exciting, and then getting to speak with him and hear that it's a tragedy, but we both had such similar family stories from the genocide, and just that resilience and perseverance from our ancestors that brought us here, and him being so willing to talk about his journey and open up about how he got to where he is in the NBA really inspired me, and I think inspired everybody. He was a player turned coach, and I think that's kind of a story that we hear a lot, but it was a different story. He wants to be a head coach.
Right.
He's been in the league for 25 years. He's got 2 interviews with the Rockets and the Raptors. And he's not giving up on it. Now he has an amazing opportunity with the Clippers to hopefully win a ring.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think?
I think specifically just about him as a human being. I know we talked about it a lot with him on the podcast in terms of how he's able to formulate such great relationships with the players like DeMar DeRozan.
Right.
And even though he hasn't coached like a Russell Westbrook or a Kevin Durant in many, many years, they still continue that and hold that relationship with him because of how he was able to just really he talked about like the fact that player development is not only about skill, but rather it's about just raising these players up as just human beings to be good human beings. And I think he did that in his time in OKC with those young stars that now have ended up being MVPs in their careers. So I think just him as a human being, and I think we sort of talked about the fact that it's crazy that he's not a head coach because I'd consider him to be one of the top assistant coaches for the last decade.
100%.
And I think it's just there's a matter of time before he's actually given that opportunity.
Like if you look at the teams he's been a part of, some incredible teams. He helped develop the Oklahoma City Thunder team with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, and James Harden.
It's crazy.
It's so nuts to think that they were all on the same team.
Yeah, they come in as kids, and they come in as like kids. Like they're not coming in as like full-grown men, mature in that sense. And a lot of things have to be learned, not just how to be the best basketball player, but how to be a professional. That's bigger than just on the court. There's a lot of off-the-court aspects to being a professional. Being able to come to practice on time, practice hard, put the work in, and instill those types of values that you need to have and make it commonplace. You see, the thing is when young players come in, usually they're resting on their laurels. They're sitting there and they're just like, okay, well, I'm athletic, so I can just dominate, and I can just that my athleticism and my natural ability is enough to get me past. But once you get to the highest league and no matter what the sport is, there's an adjustment. Like you no longer can just rest on that, and there's a certain level of professionalism where you understand that the work just began. And I think that's really important that he parlays professional development into personal development, and he really prioritizes that. What were some of your takeaways as an athlete?
Yeah, I just loved how he talked about how he got to the position he is in his career currently. And I think the first thing that I really took away was something we can all agree on is do what you love, right? Like that's pretty plain and simple. And then the second thing, I think it gets overlooked a lot, especially, we're all young. We have very lofty goals. We're very ambitious people. Like we want to have successful careers and stuff like that. But I think we sort of forget that it takes time to get there. Like we talk to all these people in the industry. We have all these guests on, and they're at the pinnacle of their careers. Like they're at the pinnacle of success. They're working in professional sports. And we sort of think after graduation, I'm going to go work here. I'm going to get that job. But it doesn't happen like that. Like you have to work your way up. And just listening to him talk about how he started at East Los Angeles College as a graduate assistant. And then he kind of got hooked up with the Clippers, and he was working in scouting, but it was more like an internship. And he wasn't really getting paid, and he had to make these sacrifices. And he knew that that's what he wanted to do. And he was willing to make the sacrifices to chase his dream. But I think there's a certain level of humility that you have to have to strive for that. And I think that he exemplified that perfectly throughout the entire podcast. So that was really, really insightful for me to see him talk about that.